All right, so we're diving deep into 3D game creation, using Unity and Maya.
Okay, yeah.
Specifically for folks out there who want to get into, the techniques for making efficient 3D assets.
Right.
And we're working with a book today called Creating Games with Unity and Maya.
Yes.
And let me tell you,
Yeah.
it's a treasure trove of info. I'm a very visual learner.
Really?
So this book is speaking my language big time.
It's very interesting how they're tackling the big elephant in the room that is always a big headache for game developers.
Yeah.
That you can create these amazing, super high detail 3D assets, and then it makes your game run like a slideshow.
Yeah, nobody wants that. So how does this book help you kind of get around that?
Well, they dive into this whole idea of polygon budgeting, which I find fascinating.
Oh, okay.
It's like you're managing your finances,
Uh-huh.
but instead of dollars, you're dealing with polygons.
Okay.
So every detail, every edge, every bevel you add
Yeah.
comes at a cost. So you got to be real strategic about where you splurge and where you simplify.
I like that. That's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
Like you almost have to think of it like every polygon you're adding to a model, it's like putting a little pebble in a runner's backpack.
Exactly.
And you got to be lean and mean if you want to win the race.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
So, but there's more to it than just the modeling, right? There's the whole game development process.
Yes.
How does that all kind of come together?
Well, and that's what I love about this book.
Okay.
Is it doesn't just focus on, one slice of game dev. It actually takes you through the pipeline from concept to finished product.
Really? So it's like a backstage pass
Yeah.
to the whole process.
Exactly.
I've always wondered what the different roles are on a game development team.
Sure.
And what they actually, do.
Yeah, so they break that down.
Okay.
You got your game designers, your mechanics engineers, level designers, and the whole cast of characters.
Yeah.
And you get a real sense of just how complex and collaborative game dev really is.
Wow, it's like a whole ecosystem. So where do Maya and Unity fit into all of this?
Well, so the book takes you on this step-by-step journey of using Maya to create the 3D models and textures, and then importing them into Unity, which is the game engine. Right. That's what makes it all come to life.
So Maya's kind of like the artist studio.
Right.
And Unity is like the stage where everything is coming together.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah. And what's interesting is they point out that while Maya is kind of the industry standard for 3D, they actually say that its modeling tools aren't its strongest suit.
Oh, really?
Its real power is in the animation tools, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Okay, so there's some quirks to it, even though it's kind of the standard.
Right.
That's good to know.
But before we get to the animation part, I'm curious about the actual building of a game environment.
Sure.
How does this book approach that?
Well, they dive right in.
Oh, okay.
With an example of creating an entryway level in Maya. And they take you through building, a dock extending out over water. You got these rock walls, a roof supported by columns, and all these architectural details. It's like you're stepping into a whole nother world.
That sounds awesome. But, when I first started 3D modeling, one of the things that was so frustrating to me was I would build something in Maya.
Right.
And then I bring it into Unity, and it's like a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Like, things aren't working right.
Sure.
Did the book mention anything about avoiding those surprises?
You're going to love this.
Okay.
They give this really cool tip about using a feature in Maya called backface culling.
Okay.
And it basically lets you preview how your models are going to look in Unity.
Oh.
So you can catch these issues.
That's awesome.
Before they become, major headaches.
Dude, I wish I had known about that back then.
Yeah.
That would have saved me a lot of time and heartache.
It's a lifesaver.
Okay, so you've got the models built, but what about textures?
Right.
Do those play a big role in game development as well?
Oh, absolutely. They add so much realism, and visual depth to your game world. But here's a little secret the book reveals.
Okay.
Image dimensions actually matter a lot.
Really? I have no idea.
In game development.
Yeah.
Yeah, they explain this whole concept called power of two textures.
Okay.
So basically, if your image dimensions aren't, a power of two, it can lead to all sorts of performance issues and make your game run slower.
Wow. Okay, so what happens after you've created your models and textures in Maya? How do you actually get to, make them come to life in Unity?
Well, that's where the real fun begins. Right. So the book really guides you seamlessly through that process of importing and configuring your 3D assets within the Unity game engine. And then it's all about like adding those interactive elements and the game mechanics that really make it like a truly immersive experience.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
It's cool how they don't just like throw you into Unity.
Yeah.
They actually explain the interface and the tools.
Okay.
Like in a way that's really approachable.
Right.
You know, even if you've never used a game engine before.
That's good, because I've definitely felt overwhelmed at times.
Sure.
In Unity. So how do they make it easier?
Well, it's very hands-on.
Yeah.
You're actually like building a game alongside the instructions with these little tutorials. You're creating terrains, placing water, adding cool effects like steam.
Cool.
You know, so it's very engaging.
Yeah, it's like you're learning by doing. You're not just like passively absorbing.
Exactly.
Right. You're applying it and actually seeing, what happens.
Exactly. Okay. And then once you've kind of mastered the basics, it actually gets into some pretty advanced techniques.
Okay.
For shading, lighting, and even baking lighting.
Baking lighting.
You ever heard of that?
That's intriguing.
It's really, really clever. It's a technique game developers use to enhance the visuals, but keep the performance smooth.
Okay.
So basically, it's like pre-rendering light and shadows onto textures.
So instead of the game engine having to calculate all that stuff in real time.
Right.
It's kind of already there.
Exactly. It's like a painter, layering colors on a canvas.
Right.
But instead of paint, you're using light and shadow.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. That makes sense why that would help with the, making the game run better.
Right. Exactly.
So we've talked about building environments. But what about characters?
Sure.
Does the book cover character creation?
Absolutely. It has a whole chapter dedicated to creating a character named Aegis Chung.
Okay.
And they walk you through the entire process from concept to animation.
Wait, it teaches you animation?
Yep.
Wow, okay.
So you start by creating like a character style sheet. Then you move into sculpting the 3D model in Maya.
Okay.
And then you rig the character.
Rigging, what does that mean?
So rigging is basically like creating a skeleton.
Oh, okay.
For your character that allows you to control its movements.
So it's like building a puppet.
Exactly.
Cool.
But in the digital world.
I've always wondered how they get, those characters in games and movies to move so realistically.
It's a complex process, but they break it down into these manageable steps.
Okay.
And they share really helpful tips like modeling the character with their arms in a relaxed position.
Oh, okay.
To create more natural-looking shoulder deformation during animation.
Interesting. It's all about the details.
It is.
Wow. So once you've rigged the character in Maya, then how do you bring it into Unity and get it to, move?
Right. So that's where these animation controllers come in.
Okay.
So they walk you through importing the rigged character into Unity, setting up animation controllers, and then actually applying those animations to get them to walk and turn and, all those actions.
It's like watching a puppet come to life. I've always wondered about sound design.
Yeah.
Like, how do you create those immersive sounds?
That's a good point. That's something that's often overlooked. But it's so crucial to making that experience immersive.
Yeah.
So they have a whole section dedicated to sound design in Unity.
Okay.
It covers, importing sound assets, adding audio sources, controlling playback.
Okay.
Creating those realistic environmental sounds.
Like the way sound changes in different spaces.
Exactly. Like if you're in a cave versus a small room.
Yeah.
So they talk about these things called audio reverb zones. Okay.
Which basically simulate how sound behaves in different environments.
Wow. Okay.
It's amazing how much those little details can enhance the player's experience.
Yeah, it's like a whole nother layer of depth.
It is.
Cool. So I'm curious about something that's a little more on the technical side, scripting.
Sure.
Which has always seemed a little intimidating to me.
Yeah.
Does the book cover that?
It does. And you know what?
What?
It explains it in a way that's surprisingly accessible.
Oh, okay.
So they break down these fundamental concepts like variables, functions, conditional statements.
Okay.
And they use like practical examples to show you how to use these things to control different aspects of your game.
So it's almost like the scripting is what gives you the power to make the game actually unique.
Precisely.
Okay.
It's like having a secret language to talk to the game engine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But coding, it still feels a little overwhelming sometimes.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. It is a new way of thinking. But the book does a great job of easing you into it.
Okay.
Starting with the basics and gradually introducing more complex concepts.
Right.
And before you know it, you're writing code.
Yeah.
That makes your game do all sorts of amazing things.
Cool. Okay. I'm feeling less intimidated already.
Yeah.
So what kind of things, can you do with scripting in Unity?
Oh, man. The possibilities are endless.
Oh, okay.
You can create interactive menus, in-game displays, control how objects move and interact, even build entire gameplay systems.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
so scripting really is like the key to unlocking the full potential of what you can do.
Exactly.
Cool. It's almost like a magic wand that you can use to make your game,
That's a great way to put it.
really come alive.
Yeah. It's about empowering you to go beyond those limitations of the pre-made assets, and really customize your world.
So I have to ask about something that to me has always seemed a little mysterious.
Okay.
Collision detection.
Right.
How do you make it so objects can actually interact with each other?
That's a great question. That's what makes your game world feel solid and believable.
Yeah.
Right? It's about defining how those objects interact. Physically. And the book does a great job of explaining how to do that.
So your character walking on the ground.
Right.
Bumping into walls, picking up objects.
Exactly. And it all comes down to using these things called colliders.
Okay.
Which are basically invisible shapes that you attach to your objects to define their boundaries.
So how do you make it so that different things can happen when they collide?
Okay, so that's where triggers come in.
Okay.
Triggers are these special types of colliders that don't physically block movement, but they can initiate events when something enters their space.
Oh, okay.
So
like a secret passage?
Exactly.
You step on a tile or you press a button?
Yeah, they give all sorts of practical examples
of
how to use triggers to create interesting interactions.
So I'm starting to see how all these different things are kind of fitting together.
Yeah.
But I want to ask about something even more advanced.
Okay.
Raycasting.
Okay.
What is that and why is it so important?
Raycasting is like shining a flashlight beam into your game world.
I like that analogy.
And seeing what it hits.
That's a really good way to explain it. I can already see how that would be so useful.
Oh, it's incredibly powerful.
Okay.
You can use it for all sorts of things.
Like what?
Simulating line of sight, detecting what the player's looking at.
Okay.
Creating aiming systems for weapons, even like complex interaction systems.
Okay. Cool. Can you give me like a specific example of how you'd use raycasting in a game?
Sure. Like imagine you're building a hallway level.
Okay.
And you want the player to be able to turn on the lights by clicking on them.
You could use raycasting to detect if the player's click intersects with the light switch.
Right.
And then trigger the animation to turn the light on.
Oh, that's so cool. It's all those little details that make it so immersive.
Exactly.
But all this stuff, we're talking about some pretty advanced things.
Yeah.
It makes me realize how much work goes into making even a simple game.
Right.
Are there ways to make it more efficient?
You're in luck.
Okay.
The book introduces this awesome concept called prefabs.
Okay.
Which are basically pre-configured game objects.
Oh, okay.
That you can just reuse over and over again.
Oh, so you don't have to, like if you wanted like a bunch of trees.
Exactly.
You don't have to make every single tree.
You got it. You just create one tree prefab.
Right.
And then you instantiate as many as you want.
That's cool. Are prefabs just for like simple things like trees and rocks?
Not at all.
Okay.
You can create them for just about anything.
In fact, the book gives examples of, creating prefabs for pistols that shoot projectiles. EMP mines you can place in the world.
Wow. Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So you can use these prefabs to help you build your environment.
Right.
And, populate it with things.
Yeah.
But then what about managing all the items that the player collects?
Yeah.
Throughout the game.
Yeah.
Does the book cover inventory systems?
Absolutely. And, it's not just about creating a visual inventory display.
Right.
It's actually about making a functional system that lets the player store, organize, and use those items.
So like their virtual backpack.
Exactly. And they walk you through designing the display, adding items to it, using scripting,
Okay.
GUI elements to make it all work.
So what about like, the things that actually drive the gameplay itself?
Sure.
The health system.
Right.
Winning, losing.
it wouldn't be a complete guide without covering those essential elements.
Right.
So they teach you how to implement health bars.
Okay.
You know, how to apply damage, game over scenarios, you know, all those moments of tension and triumph.
One of the things I always think is really cool is, you know, how they make it so that there's consequences.
Yes.
Like if you touch something dangerous.
Right.
You take damage or whatever.
Exactly.
Does the book cover those kinds of things?
Yeah, they give a great example of using scripting and triggers to create like a dangerous water hazard that damages the player on contact.
Cool.
You know, so it's like those little touches that make the world feel more believable and dangerous.
Totally. So before we wrap up, got to ask about one crucial step. Debugging.
Ah, yes.
Making sure your game actually works.
Right.
Runs smoothly.
Yeah, and trust me, those are essential steps that can make or break the quality and the success of your game.
Because I can imagine it can be pretty frustrating to spend hours and hours.
Oh, yeah.
You know, making something.
Absolutely.
And then it's just like, oh, a buggy mess or it runs slow.
Yeah, they really emphasize the importance of testing your game thoroughly at every stage of development.
Right.
Identifying and fixing those errors, and then optimizing the performance to ensure that smooth and enjoyable experience.
So it's like you're putting it through its paces.
Exactly.
You know, making sure it can handle everything that the players might throw at it.
Yeah, and they even cover the process of creating those final builds for different platforms.
Right.
So, you know, players can actually experience your creation without having to have Unity installed.
Right, right. Okay, that's cool. So that's like packaging it up.
It is.
Sending it out.
Exactly. It's the combination of all that hard work.
Yeah.
All those hours of designing and coding and testing.
Yeah.
And it's a really rewarding moment.
Yeah.
To finally share it.
So this book, they focus on creating a game that's designed for like, you know, keyboard and mouse controls.
Right.
Do you think those techniques would be adaptable to like touch-based controls?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, the fundamental principles of game and development are the same.
Right.
Regardless of the platform.
Okay, so the things you learn in this book can be applied to making games for all different kinds of devices.
It can. And one of the most versatile tools you have in your game dev arsenal is going to be that scripting.
Right.
You know?
And they do. They dive pretty deep into scripting.
You do.
Which can be challenging, but it's also fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like learning a secret code.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I noticed, you know, the way they approach scripting.
Yeah.
They really emphasize writing clean code.
Right.
Why is that so important?
Well, you know, especially when you start getting into professional game dev.
Right.
You're often working as part of a team, and you need to make sure that your code is easy for others to understand and maintain.
Right. It's not just for you.
Exactly. It's like, imagine you're building a workshop. Right? You want everything to be organized.
Right.
So you can easily find what you need.
It's like good housekeeping.
Exactly.
For your code.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you think that there's a risk that focusing on clean code might compromise efficiency?
You know, I'd say quite the opposite.
Okay.
Often, writing clean code can actually make your game more efficient.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How so?
Because if your code is well structured and easy to understand, and it's much easier to identify and fix any performance bottlenecks.
Okay.
You know?
Right.
Which can lead to huge improvements in the speed and responsiveness of your game.
So it's not just aesthetics.
It's not. It's not.
It's actually, it can actually make it run better.
It can.
Okay, that's cool. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From the basics of 3D modeling and animation.
Yeah.
All the way to scripting and optimization.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
So what are some key takeaways for aspiring game developers?
You know, I think, first and foremost, it's important to remember that game development is a journey, not a destination.
Oh, okay.
You know, there's always something new to learn, new challenges to overcome.
So it's like, embrace the learning process.
Embrace it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to make mistakes.
Right.
You know, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
There's a huge community of game developers out there who are always willing to share their knowledge.
Right.
You know, to support each other.
It's like a big team.
It is. It is.
Even though you might be working on your own individual projects.
Exactly. And I think another key takeaway is never underestimate the power of collaboration.
Yeah, they talk about that in the book quite a bit.
They do, yeah.
The importance of working with other people.
Yeah. And even if you're working solo,
Right.
it's still valuable to connect with other developers, to get feedback, to share ideas.
One thing that really resonated with me from the book was the focus on efficiency.
Yes.
Like every polygon, every texture, every line of code, it matters.
It does. You're always working with limited resources.
Yeah.
So you've got to be smart
Right.
and strategic about how you use them.
It's like that balance between quality and performance.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Finding that sweet spot.
And the book gives you a lot of good tools to help you do that.
They do.
Okay.
Lots of tips and techniques.
Now, let's not forget optimization.
Right.
Which is so important.
It's not just something you do at the end.
Right.
It's a constant thing you're thinking about.
Yeah.
Throughout the process.
They even compare using the Unity profiler to a detective.
Yeah.
Like analyzing clues.
Yeah.
Looking for those things that are slowing it down.
It's a great analogy.
And the book, it really dives into, how to use that profiler.
They do, yeah.
To make things run better.
Yes. Yeah.
But beyond just the technical, you can't forget the creative side of things.
Absolutely. At its core, game development is about creating experiences that engage and entertain and even inspire.
Right.
And that requires that creativity and imagination.
Yeah.
And passion for storytelling.
The book really encourages you to,
Yeah.
experiment and push the boundaries.
They do.
And make something that's unique.
Exactly. And that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
It's about finding your voice as a developer and bringing your own style and vision to it.
So it's not just about mastering the tools.
It's not. It's about using the tools to express your own ideas.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's what makes it so rewarding.
It is.
Taking that, spark of inspiration.
Yeah.
Turning it into something real.
Exactly. Creating something that wasn't there before.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing to think about, like, the potential games have.
Yeah.
To really touch people's lives.
Yeah.
In different ways.
Absolutely.
But, one thing we haven't talked a lot about is, like, the actual writing style.
Sure.
Of the book.
Yeah.
Like, was it easy to follow?
That's one of the things that impressed me the most about this book.
Okay.
Is how they explain even the most, like, complex technical stuff.
Right.
In a way that's, like, really clear and concise.
Right.
And surprisingly easy to grasp.
Yeah.
It's like having, a patient and knowledgeable mentor.
Right.
Guiding you.
Yeah, totally.
Every step of the way.
And they use a lot of, visual aids.
Yes.
Step-by-step instructions, practical examples.
Yeah, lots of examples.
Which is really helpful.
It is.
For learning.
It's like they anticipated the questions.
Yeah.
A beginner might have.
Right.
And addressed them proactively.
They do a good job of, addressing some of those common pitfalls.
Yes.
That people run into.
Absolutely.
Like what kind of things?
Like scope creep.
Oh, yeah.
Where your project just starts spiraling out of control.
Right.
Or getting stuck on a tricky coding problem and you feel like you're banging your head against the wall.
Yep. Been there.
So the book acknowledges those struggles.
Yeah.
And offers advice on how to overcome them.
Like, hey,
we've all been there.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
Here's how to get through it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that encouragement can be so valuable.
Right.
Especially when you're starting out.
Especially when you're just starting out.
And feeling overwhelmed.
One of the things that, for me, was really inspiring was just the overall message.
Yeah.
Like the transformative power of game development.
Yes.
Like it's more than just entertainment.
It is.
Yeah,
it's about building worlds, crafting experiences, connecting with people through interactive storytelling.
Totally.
I couldn't agree more. The book, it really emphasizes that games, they have this incredible potential to educate and inspire.
Right.
And even challenge our perceptions of the world around us.
It's a powerful medium for sure.
It is.
And I think the book says it really well. It says, games are more than just entertainment. They're a reflection of our culture.
Yes.
Our dreams and our aspirations.
Beautifully said.
And so by learning these tools,
the
techniques of game development, you're really gaining the ability to shape those reflections.
You are. To create experiences that resonate.
Yeah. It's really empowering.
It is.
To think that, we can use our creativity and these technical skills to build these worlds.
Yeah.
And share them with people.
It's amazing.
It is. And, and the cool thing is,
Yeah,
there's always something new to learn.
there is.
Always a new challenge.
Absolutely.
It's constantly evolving. It is,
Yeah.
which is exciting.
It's so exciting.
So to wrap things up, what final words of wisdom would you give to someone who's just starting out on their game dev journey?
Embrace the challenges.
Okay.
Experiment. Never stop learning.
Right.
Remember, this book is a fantastic starting point.
Yeah.
But it's just the beginning.
Right.
Yeah. There's a whole universe of resources out there. Communities ready to support you.
Right.
So dive in, explore, and most importantly, have fun creating.
I love that. That's great advice. I think that's a perfect note to end on. So to all you aspiring game developers out there, what kind of game will you create? What story will you tell? What world will you build?